What's going on? This is the Master IC, Mike Geronimo, chilling right here on the B-Shine. I remember being like around 8, 9 years old, and my mom got me like a boombox. It wasn't the one I wanted, it's never the one you want. But it was, like dual cassette, and I remember Mr. Magic and Marley Marl would come on like 9 o'clock every Saturday on a station called WBLS. And I would be on my terrace and I would listen, and I remember like it was like the first time I heard Rakim, and like I couldn't just listen to it. I had to grab the boombox and like damn near put it all the way in my face to like soak up everything. So I don't know if that's like the defining moment I had where I would say I wanted to be part of whatever that was, but it definitely was like the first memory that I think I was like, all right, whatever this guy is and whatever he's doing, I like it.
What's one of your favorite early memories that you started being exposed to it more and more that really had an impact on you?
I think like one of my favorite memories would be, it would probably be, I was in high school and one of my boys like was known for rapping in high school, and there was like 4 of us sitting at a table, and I said, well, I rap, and they're like, get the fuck out of here, no you don't. I was like, nah, I do. And my homegirl Tasha started banging on the table. She actually just started banging a drum beat, and it was like the first rhyme I ever wrote at home, and I said it, and like in the back of my head I was like kind of nervous. Like I was expecting, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, and they were all just like stunned, and they kind of started treating me a little bit different after that day, and that felt good. So that was like, I think like one of the most memorable points early on that I had. I always accredit Large Professor with being like one of the biggest influences I had in life, and Large Professor actually lived right across the street from me when I was a kid, and he was a little bit older than me, and he was one of the people like in the neighborhood where if he was outside, my mom was okay with me being outside because she knew he'd watch over me, and the older guys would always like watch over me. So Large was pretty much like a big brother to me, and because of him, I was like always exposed to like hip hop, even if I didn't want to be. Like, so many people would come to his house, like Pete Rock and Guru and Premier and Nas and Ak and Buster. And so on any given day, we could be in the front of the building and there would be like 5 rappers in front of the building. And me, at that time, I kind of was like, all it was with me was school and doing my schoolwork, and I was hustling. And I didn't have to hustle. Like in hindsight, I looked at it as it's not as though I had this broken home or whatever, but I fell into hustling. It intrigued me, so it was something I wanted to do, and I did it. With the naivety of youth, I did it. So for me, I like money, and I like being able to get whatever sneakers I wanted, and I like buying whatever clothes I wanted, and I loved taking care of like my brother and my cousin and all the people that I could. So I kind of my mentality wasn't so much on music. Like I would rap, but I would just rap to make people laugh at that point. And people like Lodge and my boy Van and my cousins and my brother, they were kind of the ones who were like, yo, you do this to make us laugh, but you kind of sound good when you're doing it. And I guess that was a trigger. And so Life is funny because like just rapping at the lunch table led to my boy Chuck putting me into a talent show at Bayside High School. And I was kind of always like a go with the flow person. Like, you're gonna do a talent show, all right, cool. You know, like, I didn't have any expectation or any of that. You know what I mean? Like, my whole thing was, all right, I got school tomorrow. I'm gonna hustle from 3 to 10 o'clock. And I was also in a program in school called Co-op, where 1 week you would work at like a real job to get real world experience, and the next week you would go to school. So oddly enough, I was working for Bantam Doubleday Dell at like 17 years old, and they're like this humongous book publishing company. So it's weird that life had me like with I was kind of placed in all these different boxes, and I really didn't know what box I wanted to dedicate all of me to. So it kind of like just happened, and I think it was more so the people around me that convinced me that maybe I should give it a real shot. And I do this talent show, and like this guy Irv Gotti appears through a mutual friend who is a DJ. And I meet Irv, and I like kinda at first I didn't keep him in mind. Like, I met him, we talked, and I was like, all right, whatever. And the next thing I know, he's like asking me, he's like, you want to come to the studio? I got a studio, I want to record you, da-da-da-da-da. And I was, again, go with the flow. I was like, all right, cool, no problem. And we go, and it turns out the first song I ever in my life ever did was Shit's Real. And I remember recording it, and Irv like stopped halfway through it, and he was like, you never recorded before? And I was like, no. He's like, never in your life? I was like, you know, like not like this. Like, you know, Lodge would record me at his crib, like just playing around. And I was mainly a DJ at the time. Like, my brother and I had 4 turntables and crates of records and 8 speakers, and like my house was like a clubhouse. Like, everybody came over. So I wasn't really even still thinking of hip hop like that, or not rapping, but I recorded Shit's Real, and like from there it was a rocket ship. And I just went with it. They had a symposium in Manhattan, like around 95 or so. And they called like all the artists, like it was me, Flush, Diddy, Jermaine Dupri, Suge Knight was there, The Brat was there, General Colin Powell was there, Quincy Jones was there, Maya Angelou was there, and it was supposed to be a forum on I guess what we can all do to stop the violence that was occurring in hip hop. But then we were sitting there, and Quincy Jones like comes up to me, and he's like, "You're Mike Geronimo, I like your stuff." And it was surreal because like I see him in front of me, and I see his mouth moving, and in my head I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, I said to him, I'm like, Mr. Jones, you probably have me confused with like another artist, because I just couldn't think that he would know who I was. And then he was like, no, my son QD listens to your music. I love that song, Train of Thought. I love that song, Things Change. And I was like, you really know the album, because these are songs that are not being played in rotation. These are songs that are like in the album. And he like looked at me and he was like, yeah, I know you. And I was like, he's like, you do incredible work. And I was like blown away. And then I shook Colin Powell's hand because he introduced us, and immediately, because my dad's like retired military, I like immediately ran and called my dad, and I was like, Dad, I just met General Colin Powell. So that was like an amazing moment. And I think after that, meeting Rakim and the things he said, like, that blew my mind. It was the last show that this place, Tramps in New York City, ever had. And I'd like never got to meet Rakim ever, and I met him and I was like struck. And he was like, you know, I see a lot of, you know, you remind me a lot of that stuff I got, like, I see a lot of me, you know, I see a lot of it in you. And I was just like, mind blown. And I think the third one was before I got my own place, like still at home, but like the records playing and the videos on, and all the neighbors are like harassing my parents and me and my whole family or whatever. And the phone rings one day and I'm like asleep, and my mom comes in the room and she's like, Michael. And I'm like, what? She's like, you got a phone call. I'm like, well, tell them I'm asleep. And she's like, no. LL Cool J is on the phone for you. LL, is it really him? And I was like, I don't know, you just woke me up. And it was really him. And my mom made me crack up laughing because she's like, it's really him? I'm going to call your Aunt June right now. I have to tell Aunt Judy. And L like was on the phone with me for like an hour and a half. Like, I guess he was like, you know, I don't want you to turn out the way that a lot of artists do. Like, you know, you got to be responsible. You should be hanging out late at night. And don't smoke and drink your life away. And, you know, it was like a real, like in retrospect to think about it, for him to take the time out to say all those things to me when he really didn't have to do it at all, like, it's tremendous. You know what I mean? But the funniest part was that he had called and my mom's face was like, it was like redder than this hat, like, you know, and those are the things I cherish, like, but there's so many, you know what I mean? There's so many. Well, it was kind of strange because this all occurred during like the first Iraq War, and my dad was actually in the first Iraq War. So I remember he was like just coming back from war when the record came out, and like my mom would tell him on the phone, she's like, you're not gonna believe what's going on. And my dad's kind of one of those people, like he's like the black Clint Eastwood. Like if you could think about Clint Eastwood's demeanor and the way he carries himself and how like nothing could ever surprise him, like that's kind of how my dad was. And I remember my mom like bugged out. Like she kind of knew we were doing stuff, and she was always pushing me to, if that's what you want to do, then do it. I'm behind you. And I think she thinks we were just like, she thought we were just like tinkering around and whatever. But when she saw the video, she like was like, well, Michael, what are you gonna do now? And I was like, I don't know. What am I gonna do now? And my dad, he was more so like, yeah, so your mother tells me, what is this? She did some sort of record or something, and it's on BLS or something like that. What's going on with you? And I tell him, and he's like, you got to figure out what you're going to do, because you graduated last year. You got to start school in the fall. You know, these are the things you should be concerned with, kid. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'm like, by the way, I've got my own place. I'm moving. And he like laughs. And he's like, please, you're not moving out of my house. You ain't ready for that shit. Your own place where? And I tell him, it's in Flushing. It's in an older neighborhood. This label is like paying for everything. And who are these people? And he gets home And when he gets home, like, oddly enough, that day we're standing in front of the entertainment center in the living room in their house. And the record comes on the radio, and they're like murdering it. Like they're not even letting the whole thing play. They're just bringing it back and bringing it back again, and they're bodying the record. And I think it was Flex or somebody, but they stopped and they're like, it was Flex. New York City, be clear. This record here is it. This is it. This kid is killing them. My father's like, all right, well, where's the check? And that's like my dad's way of saying I love you, congratulations. You know, like, you made it. That's as much as I got. So that's kind of how they reacted. But I think as it went on, and I think the more people, like with my dad, it was more so once his friends started coming back and they were like, you know, Mike, da-da-da-da-da-da. That's kind of like when my dad like was like, wow, like he just recently, a couple of nights ago, he called me and he's like, wow, kid, I can't believe what they say about you on YouTube, and I'm watching your videos, and wow, I never knew this world loves you like it did, and I'm very proud of you, and I hold you in high esteem. And I'm like, all right, well, it took 1,000 years for you to get to this point, but that's cool, you know? And my mom, like, she still to this day is like, well, when are you gonna do another album? You gotta do one now. And I'm like, if I want to, I will, you know? So like, my mom was always supportive, and my dad in his own way was supportive. I think he was just more scared of, me being misguided, or like, you know, not doing something substantial. But it all worked out. I think the one thing during my career that I like never really did was I like never absorbed it, and I never digested it, and it happened so rapidly that I like couldn't. So it's almost as though it's the same thing with the Quincy Jones scenario. It's like I was there and I know I'm here and I know this is happening, but it's all slow-mo, kind of like a car accident sort of thing, you know? And I think there were times where, like with me, it was always a vibe. Like, I was never the artist who was like, all right, I have to write this song so that I could get these spins, so that I could get this sound scan. Like, that was never me, you know? Like, I always told Irv when we did Shit's Real, I was like, you know, if we make $1 or if we make $1 million, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm just glad I have something where I won't be the average person. Like, there will always be something that someone can go back to and listen to. And in that sense, I'll always kind of be alive. And to me, that meant the world. And it still does. Like, that's the world. Great song, by the way, playing in the background. I'm like the world's biggest Led Zeppelin fan, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so I like never really digested it. And with me, it was always as it came to me. And it was funny because I would never really write. Like, I was weird. I would like be sleeping, and then at like 2:30 in the morning, I could pop up out of nowhere, and I'd just like see all of these words, and I'd remember what I was dreaming, saying, and I don't know if that makes sense, but I would just see the words and I'd remember hearing, and I'd be like, okay, well, you said this when you were sleeping. And I would just write it, and I would just write it, and I would just write it, and I would just write it. And once it became an occupation, that kind of changed, and it kind of went into like forcing yourself. And there were times when that turned out really good, and then there were times when that turned out not so good. You know, so with me, it was always like vibe. It was always vibe, and it was always, I guess the shit like really wanted me because, like I said, if I was asleep and I would see words and hear cadences and wake up and write them down, then like that's not me. You know, that's something else.
Another energy.
I guess. You know what I mean? And the way I would rationalize it is, my birth mom died when I was 10. She died of cancer, and my aunt, my uncle, and one of my childhood friends, they all died in the same year, like maybe 3 to 4 months apart from each other. And so when all this shit like started happening, I would always be like, well, maybe this is their gift to me. And maybe I shouldn't worry about how it turns out. Maybe this is just their way of being like, all right, we're not here, but we are here, so just take this and run with it. And that was kind of the logic that I like followed. And as I did, it was weird. Like, I think it was Elliot Wilson the other day who told me, he's like, you know, your situation to this day is unheard of. Like, it's never happened before. He's like, I don't know anyone who could take a year between singles and then go gold. I don't know anyone who can have a deal with an independent label but have an open budget. I don't know anyone who was independent but people didn't know if you were Def Jam or if you were Bad Boy or if you were Murder Inc. or if you were... No one knew what to make of you, but it all worked. And I was like, you know, for that, I kind of like accredit that to that whole whatever it was that would wake me up at 2 in the morning, you know? Like, I love making music. I absolutely love recording a song. I love that moment when you're hearing a beat and you're saying what you wrote and you get this little thing where like your skin has goosebumps and you know that you and it are like in this wedding, this marriage. I love that. And I love that it changes people's lives, or those are the things I love. But I think the part I didn't so much dig was the notoriety. I like have a very tough time, I guess even to this day, with like fame. So for me it was kind of like Irv would always say, I'm scared of success. And like I remember one day I like started crying at my kitchen table. It was me and Irv, and I was trying to finish writing The Natural and the words weren't coming, and I like felt all this pressure. And I think that the people around me thought that I was scared more of like yo, they're mobbing him on Jamaica Avenue, or yo, he can't go buy like a soda by himself these days, or like, I think they think that's what it was. But I had a fear more of, am I living up to the expectations that everything around me is placing on me? And am I gonna be able to do this long enough where I could take care of everyone I love? And anything I did in life or anything I do in life, I have like a very competitive spirit. So if I end up in third place, I'm like pissed. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll beat myself up about it. I'll be like, well, you could have did this differently and you would have ended up first. And if you'd have tied your shoe, you would have got off early. And that's like always been me. But those are things I couldn't get a grip with. And I think now that I've like taken this hiatus with like no end point that I've like established, like now I could see. So it's like, I love the effect it made for people. I love that it brought me to places in the world I'd have never thought I'd been. I love that I met people I would never have imagined being cool with, and those are the things I love. But like the fame and like I gotta have more money than this guy, and my car should be this, and I should be banging that chick, and like those were the things I just didn't dig. You know what I mean? And to me, those things are like very superficial, and I'm just not good at not being me. So I don't know if I'll ever get like a barometer on that. I don't know if I'll ever have like that perfect equilibrium, but that was very tough. Not too long ago, we were doing a job for my company, and I get out the truck, and these 3 kids in Brooklyn, it's like in East New York, and they come out the store. And at this point, I could kind of like tell when it's gonna be. You get a sense of the whole what's coming when you see people. So I kind of knew they were gonna come up to me or whatever, but they like called the whole block out. They're like, yo, Rob, go get some. Yo, we were just talking about this nigga, yo, son, you a legend, da 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 da. And one of them proceeds to tell me, he's like, yo, I'm gonna tell you, son. He's like, yo, my man loved your shit. He couldn't wait for your second album to come out. He got locked up. And when he came home, he kept talking about, yo, when Mike Geronimo come out, when he comes out, he's like, yo, he died. But your album came out like a month later. And he's like, yo, we played your album like religiously at the I guess the place they set up the memoriam. And his friends were like, this album your album changed us. And when you hear stuff like that, it almost puts you in the position of a deity, like, because it's people putting you like in a space you'd never imagine. And I don't say deity in the sense of being conceited. I say it more so as, to me, God changes things. You know what I mean? To me, the God in people changes things. But for someone to accredit what you did as being that much of a life-altering thing, like that's amazing. Like, I've read stories on Facebook that people have shared with me where they're like, your album got me through tough times, or, my girlfriend died when this came out, or my brother was killed when this came out, or, I listened to you and I changed my whole way of how I carried myself. And I think those are the things, like, you just can't believe, like my wife, like I'll cry at home sometimes when I'm reading some of the stuff, because I'll be like, I can't believe that people would put this much on what little old me has done. You know what I mean? And so when you hear that, that's like, it fills your heart. You know what I mean? Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like the happiest person you're probably ever in your life gonna meet, because I look at it like everything I need in life I have. I have a beautiful wife. I have my beautiful kids. I thank God I have a business. I have a home. Thank God we're not worried about what tomorrow is going to bring. And those things, to me, alone make me the happiest person in the world. But when you add stories like the ones the Brooklyn kids told me, and when you add things like what people say on like Facebook or YouTube, or when you add, my dad calling me and saying, I read something where this kid in France is saying this about you, and this kid in Czechoslovakia said this, and you have fans in Poland, and how do you even have fucking fans in Poland? And for my dad to say that to me, like, those are the things that made it all worthwhile. Like, way more than any plaque or way more than any sale. Like, those are the things that make it worthwhile. I remember at a certain point in my life that wasn't too cool, I had read this book by an author called Stephen Covey. and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he poses this scenario where he says, imagine yourself in a funeral parlor, and the first bunch of people you see when you first come in, you like don't know them at all. And as you walk towards the coffin, you're starting to notice faces that you know. And then you get to the front row and you know all of these people. And you look in the coffin and it's you. And he poses the question, what do you want him to say about you? And that changed everything in my world. And I think that in itself was a catalyst for me to embark, like, not necessarily on a different direction, but just to really understand what I want him to say. So I know what I want him to say, and I think that by you talking to me, you probably have a better idea of what would be said than I do. But whatever it is you say, my heart's like this big that you're saying. You understand what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, and if I keep doing what I'm doing and staying where I am and having this sense that I have about myself, I'm pretty sure that you'll know what I want him to say. And you'll know the mark that I want to leave. And you'll know that I'm tremendously overjoyed to leave it that way. You know? You know better than I do.